doing for, for the first 6 months of this monitorship. And so that includes, the three main areas. So in addition to the election, which I'll get to in a moment, of course, which is why you're all here, we also have a compliance mandate, which is providing oversight over the compliance efforts of the union to clean itself up, bring up to speed its internal controls, put the necessary protections in place that will help ensure, or at least put the union in the best position to prevent the criminal conduct which led the consent decree from happening to happening again. The second part of our mandate is an investigative mandate. That includes sort of two parts. One is we are empowered to investigate and initiate disciplinary actions against anyone who violates certain areas of misconduct which are defined in the consent decree. This is mostly fraud, acts of fraud similar to those that were taken by the union's leadership that led to the consent decree. But it also includes other actions under the consent decree, including impeding our efforts or obstructing the monitor's efforts in carrying out our duties. We're also doing a look back. So that is for misconduct that occurs after the monitorship starts, but it also includes looking at conduct that predated the monitorship, including conduct that maybe led to the consent decree but wasn't dealt with by the Department of Justice. And our third area, which is why we're all here today, is the referendum. We play a role in administering and overseeing the referendum. To that end, as many of you know, we've published a set of rules, referendum rules, that are posted on our website. They should be posted on the UAW's website. We're on version 2.0 right now, and they set forth, the conduct, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and how we're doing this. Just as a little bit of background, those rules are, we don't have as monitor the unilateral authority to design and implement rules. The consent decree requires sort of three parties to agree on everything, us, the UAW, as well as the Department of Labor. And so some of the provisions in the rules are the product of negotiations amongst those three parties. So sometimes I get questions, Neil, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? The answer is often that it's not all up to me. This is the process that the parties agreed to when they entered into the consent decree. As you may also have seen in the rules, we call them interim rules. And part of that is there's been ongoing discussions between the UAW and the Department of Justice about potentially amending those rules, and in particular, amending the blanket prohibition on union funds to advocate on one side of the referendum or the other. My update on that is that those discussions are still ongoing and may result in an application to the judge to change the rules. But of course, unless and until the judge orders any change in the rules that we have up are the rules that govern. And of course, if the judge does, if the parties do apply and the judge does agree to change the rules, we will update our set of rules with a final set of rules there. And so one of the things in the rules that we did is we put out this, to call for a forum for everyone to be able to come and see and be heard on behalf of their position. And that's obviously why everyone is here today. So you all know that, so I won't go into too much detail about that. But a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, we received a lot of questions about the mailing list for this mail-in election. And so just a couple of key dates I want everyone to be aware of. The big one is October 19th. That is the day the ballots will be sent out by the vendors. And we've been going through a process working with the union and our vendor to cure the mailing list. It was not in great shape when we started this process. It is in much better shape today than it was, that is for sure, through the hard work of our team and the vendor and the UAW. That does not mean that it is perfect, and we're continuing to try to achieve that perfection every day. But everyone should make sure that their updated contact and mailing address resides with their local union. The way the process works is the local union collects the updated addresses and then transmit that up to the UAW, which then transmit it to the election vendor. And so that is the area, that is an ongoing process. Even after October 19th, just because that's the day the ballots go out. That doesn't mean if your address isn't updated by that point, that means, oh, you don't get a ballot. You still can get a ballot, and you can still update your address. And so what I would ask everyone, and not just the folks on this call, but I know a lot of you are, well connected with many members of the union and through your different organizations, through your locals. If about a week after October 19th, someone has not gotten a ballot, come to our website. There's an address there that you can email. People can email and say, hey, I haven't gotten a ballot, and we're going to get you a ballot. And don't worry, there's no chance that by doing so that somebody's going to have an opportunity to vote twice. Essentially, once a new ballot gets mailed out, the old ballot becomes invalid. It won't work. And so it's not an avenue of someone to sort of cheat or get multiple votes. The way this system is set up is that if a new ballot is sent out, the old ballot is invalidated. And so nobody will be able to vote more than once in this election. But it's really important that everyone, make sure, in addition to the mailing list not being perfect, as we all know, unfortunately, the United States Postal Service has not been perfect. But we've got a lot of time built in here between the day that the ballots go out and the ultimate counting, that everyone should be able to get a ballot in time and able to return it in time for their vote to be counted. Enfranchising as many members as possible is really one of our top priority. And so please, we just ask everyone to work with us and help us make sure that everyone gets a ballot and everyone has an opportunity to participate. The other key dates, just to keep in mind, is that you have to be in good standing by November 19th. And so that means if you know anyone who's not in good standing, they need to get themselves back in good standing by the 19th. And they got to make sure that the local reports that they're in good standing by November 19th. We rely on information from the locals to verify that folks are in good standing. So that's really important. If you know people who are new members to the union who've not yet joined or joined between now and November 19th, particularly in some of the graduate student unions, I know this is an issue that we're very, very attuned to. Please make sure the local knows, make sure the local alerts, and we're going to be right up until November 19th. We're going to be doing everything we can to make sure that every active member on November 19th, by November 19th, has an opportunity to cast their ballots. And the final key date is that all ballots must be received by November 29th. That is received, not postmarked. And so just really strongly encourage everyone, get your ballot in early. Don't trust the post office to get it there in a day or two. As we all know, that doesn't happen. Used to be great. The last couple of years, we've seen that's more of a happy surprise than something to count on. And so please, you get your ballot, and please encourage everyone get your vote in and return the ballot. Okay, I've been talking too much. As always, it is my tendency, for which I apologize. Those of you who have had the opportunity to chat with, looking at you, Scott, know that it is a problem for any lawyer. And so I apologize for that. But I do want to get to the heart of what we're doing. So Lisa, who you heard from before, is on our elections team. She works with Glenn McGordy, who is heading up this effort. And so Glenn has a lot of experience in overseeing union elections, and Lisa has worked with him. So Lisa shares that experience, and Lisa has graciously agreed to be the moderator for this evening's discussion. I will say that you might see in the lower hand corner a Q&A button. That doesn't have to be, that's a Q&A for me and the monitor team, not necessarily for each other. If you have questions, whether it relates to the referendum or really, frankly, anything else related to the monitorship, you can enter your question in the Q&A at any time during our discussion. If we have time, and if I know the answer, I will try to answer as many of the questions as possible at the conclusion of our discussion today. But if for some reason I can't get to it, or I don't know the answer off the top of my head, we'll be able to get a response to you via email or some other way. Once you put in that question, we'll capture your information and be able to respond to you after today's webinar. And finally, the webinar will be posted on our website afterwards. So if you know folks who've were not able to attend or dial in, we've tried to promote it. We've tried to do it through the union's email address list, such as it is. I went on social media today to try to promote this, but the point is that it's not going anywhere. Where actually it is going, where it's going up on our website, and so folks will be able to have the benefit of your wisdom after this is concluded. So with that, let me turn it over to Lisa, who will monitor the discussion today.
Great, thanks, Neil. All right, so I will just start off with a few ground rules that I think all the speakers are aware of already, but I'll go over them just so everybody's clear on what the rules are for the forum. So each speaker is going to have 2 minutes to speak and to share his or her view on the referendum question. To make sure everybody has an opportunity to be heard without any interruption, all other participants' microphones are going to be muted throughout the duration of the forum, except during his or her allotted time to speak. I will call out each speaker's name in order when it's that person's time to speak, at which point that speaker's mic will be unmuted to allow them to speak for the 2 minutes. I will raise my hand like this to notify the speaker when there are 30 seconds left in the 2 minutes, so that you're aware of the time. So if you're looking at the screen and you see me do this, that means 30 seconds left. And then I'll also notify each speaker at the end of the 2 minutes that their time is up. If the speaker's in the middle of the sentence, he or she can finish the sentence and conclude his or her remarks. But if any speaker continues to speak beyond the allotted 2 minutes, unfortunately, we're going to have to mute your mic in that case. So we're really trying to keep it to the 2 minute time period for everybody. As you are all aware, the forum tonight will be recorded and posted on the Monitor's website. All UAW members who wish to view the referendum forum can do so at their convenience by going to the Monitor's website. It'll also be publicly broadcast live on YouTube tonight. And with that, we'll get started. And I will call the first person's name to speak, and that will be Alan B.
Okay, can I start? Can I start?
Yes, you can start.
Oh, okay. Mr. Monitor, brothers and sisters, my name is Al Benchich, retired member and former president of UAW Local 909. I was elected by my members, and I support their right to directly elect our international officers. As a member of the UAW for over 50 years, I have watched the decline of democracy in our union and the resulting corruption of our leadership. In my opinion, this corruption is due in large part to the delegate system used to elect our international officers. As an elected delegate to 5 UAW conventions, I've witnessed how this system was used by the administration caucus to create one-party rule. They used threats and rewards to control delegates at conventions. This has led to a lack of internal democracy and accountability to the membership. Those who were loyal and kept quiet were appointed. Those who spoke up were crushed. As an example, in the late 1980s, I was part of the founding of a rank-and-file group called New Directions. We supported one member, one vote, and greater democracy in the UAW. I was one of 5 people elected as New Direction delegates from our local who attended the 1989 UAW convention, supporting a New Directions candidate for regional director. At that convention, I personally witnessed New Direction delegates being threatened by international reps who acted as administration caucus enforcers. Delegates were told to fall in line or they wouldn't get assistance from the international with issues at their plant, or they wouldn't get the new work they were trying to obtain. Others that couldn't be intimidated were promised appointed positions for their support. These undemocratic tactics crushed the rank-and-file movement and has changed the culture of the UAW. This system of rewards and pressure allowed for corruption in leadership, which has led to this referendum. Let me conclude by saying that one-party systems are the hallmark of dictatorships, not democracies. We can keep the delegate system to establish UAW policy, but union democracy demands direct election of our leadership. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. All right. Thanks for that. Next up is Andrew B. We have Andrew.
Yep. Hello. That was incredible, Ellen. Thank you. Support everything you said. My name's Andrew Bergman. I'm a trustee in Local 5118, the Harvard Graduate Students Union. I'm also on the steering committee of the rank and file caucus in our union, Uniting All Workers for Democracy, or UAWD, which is committed to building a UAW that works for and represents all of our members democratically. And you're all welcome to join at uawd.org/join. I'm here to speak in support of the direct voting system in this referendum, also known as one member, one vote. Democracy in our union isn't just a technical or procedural question about how we elect leaders. It's about social justice, it's about organizing the unorganized, and most importantly, it's about our members' material conditions by getting stronger contracts. I'm from a higher education local, which is a sector in our union that's been growing for years and is at about 80,000 members now by some counts. But having spent the last year organizing closely with auto workers in our union in UAWD, I know that we face a lot of the same issues across our union. The biggest one being in concessionary contracts born out of our UAW leaders not wanting to take on our bosses. One thing I've heard leaders across locals say and at regional level is that organizing within our union was somehow a gift to bosses, distracting us from our contract campaigns. But my experience is that how we elect our UAW president and the rest of our international executive board couldn't be more closely connected to our material conditions. And there's some really strong cases of this. One is probably something you've all heard about in the press, which is the Volvo workers down at Local 2069 in Virginia being forced to vote 3 times on the exact same contract. Their lead bargainer was our current president, Ray Curry. And they overwhelmingly struck that down the first time, 90+%. They were asked to vote on it 2 more times and their jobs were threatened before they finally did it. Not having a democratically elected leader who thought they needed to fight for their members meant that they did not get the contract they deserved and were not supported in the strike they were on. We faced similar things in higher education. Columbia workers forced to take no strike clause in recognition. I'm asking you to support
Andrew,
direct elections.
The 2-minute time is up. You can finish your sentence.
I'm asking you all to just support the direct voting system and one member, one vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, next up, we have Anila G. Is Anila here? Okay. Anila is not here, then we'll go to the next person. Next speaker up is Aurelia R.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aurelia. I'm a steward for Local 2110 at Columbia University. I've been there for 10 years. And first, I would like to thank Zach, without whom I wouldn't be here tonight because we didn't have any knowledge of any referendum at all. So thank you, Zach. So my understanding is that the feds gave us basically a second chance to get it together, and by allowing us to change the way we elect leaders in this union. I don't think we can do that by opting for the statu quo, which is the delegate system. And that delegate system seems problematic because it reinforces cronyism, lack of transparency. It seems very archaic, to say the least. And most of all, it's very, I feel like it's a very paternalistic system. For me, experience is meant to be passed on to new generation, not just hijacked by a handful of people who have been there way too long. So I am obviously for direct voting. And I think one member, one vote goes against all that as I spoke previously, by increasing accountability, transparency, and more importantly, by involving every single member to participate. And I think the more voice, the more opinion we hear, the more democratic a government is. And the same goes for UAW, obviously. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Aurelia. Next up, we have Brian S. Is Brian here?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay, great. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes.
Brian Schneck, 28-year member, UAW Local 259 in Region 9A. I serve currently as president, and I'm humbled by that. I support direct elections, and so should you. Now, will direct elections immune our union from criminal corruption? No. We're human beings, and human beings have proven to us what they're capable of. The IEB has no direct accountability to the membership, but every other elected leader in the UAW does. The membership has no direct recourse on the IEB or IEB members that are bad actors or just incompetent, but has such recourse with every other local leader in the UAW. The time has come for the membership to be able to hold IEB members directly accountable. Processes available within our Constitution are rather cumbersome and serve as a deterrent rather than a dispute resolution mechanism. Effective leaders, honest people, and those respected by the membership should have no fear of whatever kind of democratic election process prevails. At Local 259, shop stewards to the top leadership, we're all subject to direct elections. So why is it the IEB is in a special class within our own union? What has the IEB done to earn this special class status? IEB members knew for years who the criminal bad actors were, and what did the IEB do? They did nothing. What they did do is in November of 2016, the IEB implemented a policy to cover the legal fees for employees of the International Union and the IEB members. I have that policy. When Criminal Jones had his house raided and it was discovered that Criminal Jones had $30,000 in his golf bag, what did the IEB do? Nothing, not a damn thing. At 259, I could tell you this, when it was discovered that a sitting financial secretary lied to the membership and the executive board, what did 259 do? That financial secretary was immediately
Brian, the 2 minutes.
done and over. We need direct accountability and direct recourse for this membership. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, next we have Chris M. Is Chris here tonight? All right. I don't think so. So we'll move on to Cody Z.
Good evening, UAW members. My name is Cody Zaremba. I'm a member of UAW Local 602 and a UAWD steering committee member and work at General Motors, Lansing Delta Township Assembly Plant in Lansing, Michigan. I'd like to ask a question. Why are we here today speaking? The answer, a corruption scandal that has tarnished the name of the UAW and a consent decree, which in part provides the opportunity to change our election process for the UAW International Executive Board. In my opinion, this scandal is one of the worst to take place in a national union. Only the Teamster scandal compares. What does this have to do with the UAW's election process? It all has to do with what takes place at the UAW Constitutional Convention every 4 years. The IUAW is a one-party slate with very little accountability to its membership. Noisemakers to drown out dissidents, lobbying, bullying, and retaliation for actions that take place at the convention are just a few reasons to change our undemocratic delegate voting system to a direct voting system, where all members vote, not just elect delegates. If the direct voting system passes, I believe new caucuses will form, putting pressure on the current ruling caucus to make good, ethical decisions for the membership. We, the membership, will have the ability to directly vote on International Executive Board representatives. I believe that the direct voting system is a great start to reforming the UAW by giving all members a voice in who will represent them. I'm asking all voters, please vote for the direct voting system on your mail-in ballot. I thank you for the opportunity to offer my voice here this evening.
Thank you. All right, next we have Craig L. Do we have Craig here?
Yes, you do. My name is Craig Levitt. I'm a member of retired member of Local 659, Flint, Michigan. As trade unionists, one of the most sacred responsibilities we have is to protect and care for the credibility of our organization and its legacy. There's no greater responsibility. I stand in favor, because of that, for the delegate system. I believe we should be cleaning up our own problems on the Constitutional Convention floor. We just need to have faith and trust in each other. That is what unions and union memberships do. They trust each other. Does the current delegate system need reform? Absolutely needs reform. My biggest fear is that the same dark money that today plagues our US body politic will be influencing our union body politic, and the International Executive Board will be bought and paid for by dark money. Think about that for a minute. And don't think for a minute it couldn't happen. And you think we have problems now. As I indicated, our system needs reform. One example, one simple example, would be a system to appoint international representatives that takes nepotism out of the equation, period. Nepotism has stifled good, strong, qualified union leadership for years. I have complete confidence in the current International Executive Board. They see these problems and are prepared to take action on them, as we have for years on the Constitutional Convention and the system that we have always used to clean up our own mess. It isn't a perfect system, no, it's not, but it's worked for 84 years. One man, one vote will not be a perfect system either. There's no panacea. It's hard work. You have to roll up your sleeves. We only have one choice, and that is to unite around these issues as a strong union and come out better on the other side.
Thank you, Craig.
The UAW.
Thanks, Craig. Okay. Next up, we have David C.
Am I on?
Yep.
Let's look at reality. The huge majority of UAW members have no idea of the UAW president's name or the other international officers, let alone their background or qualifications for office. They only pay substantial attention to union matters when issues arise in the workplace or when some unfairness is perceived, or during election and contract time. They rely on those local union knowledgeable of the union leadership and issues to deal with union matters on their behalf. They elect local union representatives who they believe will act in their best interest on these matters. This is what delegate voting system was designed for. Members knowledgeable of the players and the issues that are chosen by their local union membership to represent them. In today's world, the UAW officers have worked their way up through the ranks from local unions, leadership councils, conventions, staff positions, and other forums, demonstrating their skills and ability of representing the membership. In tomorrow's world, if the direct voting system becomes the UAW's method of electing officers, our officers will be the best bullshitters with the best campaign tactics, just like our politicians in Washington. The focus will become how to get reelected, not how to best represent the membership. I spent most of my adult life working for the greatest union in the world, whose hundreds of officers have dedicated their lives to making a better world for working people. It turns my stomach every time I think about the handful of sorry, greedy UAW reps that put themselves above the membership and cast this stain on our union. Please don't allow this handful of losers or sensationalized unfair media coverage, or unscrupulous and inaccurate media posts, or any other reason convince you to change the UAW's constitution that has guided the best union in this country for years and years. Please cast your vote to keep the UAW Constitution's delegate voting system and keep your union strong.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Dave. Next up, we have Duncan O. Is Duncan here?
Thank you. My name's Duncan Osborne. I'm the first vice president in Local 7902 in New York City. We represent adjunct faculty at NYU, part-time faculty, student workers, and healthcare workers at the new school. I'm speaking in favor of the direct election system today. But first, I want to say that I'm honored to be here on this call with people who have fought so long for transparency at the UAW, and for other people on this call who have equally defended the UAW for so long. I mean, the commitment that you folks all have to this union it's moving to see it. I have to say that. The problem I have with the delegate system is that when it was initially established, there might have been one or two good reasons to have a system like this, but it very quickly became a way to centralize power in the international. The capstone of that effort came in 1947 with the administration caucus, which has essentially ruled this union for what, 80-something years, right? It is fundamentally anti-democratic, it's anti-dissent, it's anti-discussion, and functionally it ends up being anti-good ideas, because consistently that caucus seeks to defend the status quo. And that's just wrong. And I think we finally have seen why that's wrong. It creates an insular environment, it creates a secretive environment, and it creates an environment in which corruption can easily appear and take hold. So I think the solution, I think the future to this union is the direct election system. That starts us on the course to having a democratic UAW. And I think that's where we want to go. And I think we want to give up the delegate system because it has proven itself to be wrong for the UAW. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. Okay, next up we have Eric T.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, hi, my name is Eric Truss. I'm from Local 600. I'm from the heart or ground zero of the Administrative Caucus, Local 600, which is the Ridge Complex, which holds about 30,000 members and 48 different units. I'm here representing Auto Workers Caravan. Auto Worker Caravan was founded during the big three financial crisis. It's a rank and file workers that drove to Washington, DC to lobby Congress for workers' rights and wages, because we knew that a concession was going to be on the way in the industry. Auto Worker Caravan fought for and continue to fight for plant conversion of green product industry. Auto Worker Caravan also fought and continue to fight for pension and health care for everyone. The convention delegate has filled our membership, and how they've done it. Here's the leading factor to that. Membership had questions about our strike fund, which we did not have a large scale strike at any time, which seemed to have been decreasing. With that decrease, the union was asking for a raise in our union dues. This is how you can see the failure of our delegates. No members wanted a raise in our union dues because we had no raise for over 8 years from any of the big three in any contract. So why would you ask for a raise of our union dues when we couldn't even get a contract with a raise for over 8 years? This is proof that our delegates ignored the voice of the membership. And that's all I want. And that's proof about our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next up, we have Frank H.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So I'm Frank Hammer. I'm proud of a 32-year career as a GM production and skilled trades worker, and served at my local union for 4 terms in office as president and chairman of UAW Local 909. I've also served on international staff representing GM workers in our arbitrations. And in my retirement, I've been active with the Auto Workers Caravan and United All Workers for Democracy. I was an advocate for one member, one vote, starting in the 1980s. I joined with New Directions to support Jerry Tucker, then a Region 5 assistant director and a brilliant militant working class organizer. From the moment Tucker challenged the then do-nothing regional director, he was treated like a dog, as was Victor Ruther, one of the founders of the union and brother to Walter, who was very vocal in his retirement about problems he saw in the UAW's direction. There's something wrong with the union caucus, the administration caucus, that it could trash these 2 leaders who contributed so much to our UAW and which never apologized. 20 years later, that same caucus brought great harm to our union as with an unprecedented corruption scandal. They have expressed no regret as a caucus to the rank and file, nor offered any reforms to their orchestrated conventions that got us into this mess. The political leadership of the union must fundamentally change to lead the charge in reinventing a democratic UAW. The only way to do this is to support one member, one vote, as advocated by the rank and file group UAWD. The question I leave you with you is this: where are the Jerry Tuckers of today to lead this movement? We're going to be facing challenging times, especially with the electrification of the auto industry threatening to reduce our ranks even further. The union will need qualified, fighting, visionary leaders. Will we have a structured and fair election process that will this time give them a chance to win? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. All right, next up we have Gary W. Do we have Gary here? Okay, I don't think so. So let's move on to the next speaker, who is Glenn W.
Hello. I'm Glenn Woods. I'm a retiree out of UAW Local 31 in Kansas City, Kansas. I've been a member for 45 years. You know, first off, I see a lot of old people on here. I wonder what's up with that. I like the delegate system only because, you know, I'd love to be president of the UAW, but with almost 1 million members out there, who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for one member, one vote? I don't see how it's feasibly possible. I'm with the guy that was talking about the dark money rule in these elections. You know, you clean up the delegate system, get rid of these, all these directors having their own cap funds, and you know, they put a golf tournament on and there's $10,000 raised and it gets slid right into the director's pocket. You know, it doesn't go through the financial secretary like it's supposed to. I've heard of those things. I have never seen it personally. I'm sure we've all heard of things like that, but I don't know how we can vote on this until we have the rules laid out on how a one person, one vote is going to be paid for. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. The next speaker is James P. Do we have James with us?
Unmute. There, I am muted. Thank you very much, and good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Jim Peterson. I'm a retired auto worker from UAW Local 892 in Region 1A, and I want to speak about in favor of the delegate system. What Brother Frank Hammer just said is unprecedented. This recent scandal is unprecedented, despite the fact that we've existed for 80 years with the delegate system. It's been delegates that turn good, honest leadership to our union. And there's a lot of association that I've heard tonight in my career, my 50 years with the UAW. People associate the delegate system and the administrative caucus with corruption, but the evidence just isn't there. There's nearly 80-year history of good, clean politics in our union. And in other unions that do have direct election, there's corruption. In local unions, in fact, the evidence suggests that at the local union level, where there is direct election of officers, there's a lot more corruption than there is in the international union. We've got the safeguards in place. We've done a lot of good things. And I like the delegate system. I'm going to vote for my delegate that I trust to go do the right thing. And secondarily, I've heard again about the money. How is a candidate or candidates for international officers going to campaign from California, where we have nearly 10,000 members, to New England, where we have another 10,000 members? Who's going to pay for those flights? You know, direct election, look at our national politics. My God, somebody pays for those candidates, somebody pays for those ads, somebody pays for that material. And that's the corrupting influence, the money in direct election of our national officers. And it breaks my heart to say that because I keep voting, I keep working for candidates. But we have to look at the candidates, do our background checks, do our due diligence. And I say stick with the delegate system, keep the big money, keep the corporate money, keep the dark money out of our UAW politics. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Jim. The next speaker up is Jamonte W.
You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamonte Washington from UAW Local 7. I'm an alternate delegate, and I thank you for the opportunity. A culture of corruption. A culture of corruption, a term overwhelmingly used in the sentencing hearings of our 15 or so UAW leaders who will probably still be in the union right now, but were not for the outside intervention of law and order. One of the prosecutors said, and I quote, "An atmosphere where unquestioning obedience to leadership meant achievement. Instead of speaking up, you are to do exactly what you are told by the big bosses," unquote. Who are the big bosses that prosecutor was referring to? I submit the big bosses were the president, the 3 vice presidents, the financial secretary treasurer, and the 8 regional directors known as International Executive Board. We need to change this culture of corruption to a culture of good character and accountability. And we achieve this goal by voting yes in this referendum of direct elections, also known as 1 member, 1 vote. As a union, we can negotiate wages, we can negotiate healthcare, we can negotiate retirement and many other things, but we cannot negotiate integrity and a strong moral compass. We must demand it. And these demands will be met with the start and support and passing of this referendum of direct elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamonte. Next up, we've got John G.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is John Ganan, and I'm a retired from Local 136. And I'm not here to trash or bash anybody. What I'm looking for is a clarification in regards to retirees. I've been afforded the privilege and honor to attend 2 retiree chapters 2 weeks ago, and we walked them through the consent decree in regards to how the referendum vote was going to work. And the question is, if the membership chooses 1M and 1V as their principal, and at that time, the UAW shall be developing the election rules and methods. The question that they're asking me and others, who is eligible to run under this 1M, 1V, because that will influence them how they will cast their ballots. So my question is, they are assuming that if you have a right to vote under 1M, 1V, then you would also have a right to run for an IEB position. And the question is that true? If we're opening it up to everybody, I doubt, or wouldn't think that you would exclude retirees. There's a number of retirees that I know of that were outstanding negotiators when we actually used to extract things from the bargaining table that identified retirees and the active workers. I was a top AA in the crisis department in 1996, along with President Steve Yokich, and I negotiated that contract with him, which got an 80% ratification vote from the membership. So my question is, could somebody at least let the retirees know, do they meet the qualifier to run for an IEB board position? Because the retirees have not been addressed in 15 years. And I need to know that answer so I can respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have Keith B.
Hi, siblings. My name is Keith. I'm in Local 2865, one of our 10,000 strong higher ed members in California. And I'm asking you all to vote yes on one member, one vote, so that we can build a member-led union that's going to be able to end two-tier contracts and organize EV plants before it's too late. I'm a proud member of the UAWD caucus, and in UAWD, I've got to know auto workers all over the country. And I've learned that two-tier in auto with temps on the assembly line and two-tier in higher ed with adjunct faculty, it's the same vile problem at heart. The boss uses two-tier to divide and conquer us and pockets the money we earn. Instead of a union that fought back from the rank and file up, we had top leaders who were accountable mostly to their own golf trips. Convention delegates electing leaders in secret is no way to have accountability in a union, which at the end of the day is about its members, is about us on the shop floor having power. A convention delegate voting in leadership in secret is no way to get rank and file members involved and energized in our union. If we go to one member, one vote, every member will be a part of deciding where we go as a union. Every member on the assembly line, in the chem lab, at the blackjack table will have power and responsibility in how we end two-tier and organize the unorganized. Leaders will know that they need to win our support, not just win the support of insiders. One member, one vote is our first huge step to win back the member-led UAW that's going to end two-tier contracts and organize EV for good, come hell or high water. So join me and vote yes.
Thank you, Keith. Next up, we have Leah M.
Hi. Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name is Leah Margulies, and as a result of a month-long strike in 2019, I'm now a member of UAW 2325, Association of Legal Aid Attorneys. I support using the direct voting system to elect our officers. When we vote in regular elections, that's what we do to vote for people that we want to represent our interests. This is what one person, one vote means. This is a corrective to the delegate system that has had centralized power and led to corruption, which has been so disappointing. Once one person, one vote wins, we can create rules and regulations that protect elections from all forms of undue influence. We can limit how much money can be spent on a campaign. We can create a strict reporting requirement, and there are a host of other reforms that other unions do use successfully. This is the best way to make sure that this union, established to protect its members, Workers in both the auto and service industries actually does protect us and protect our interests. I just want to say at the end that I'm disappointed that more people are not participating in this, and I strongly suggest we all distribute this and reach out to our membership, whatever, however size it is. I know it's difficult, but we have to make sure that our members know that this election is happening and that they participate in it.
Thank you, Leah. Next up, we have Leroy M. Do we have Leroy here? All right. We'll go to the next speaker, who is Martha G.
Thank you. Good evening, union family. I'm Martha Gravatt, Local 869 retiree and former trustee, and now a trustee of UAWD. I support direct elections, one member, one vote. It will give the rank and file a tremendous opportunity to begin rectifying the problems in our union. Disgusting corruption is just one piece. We have to break the partnership between the bosses and the union and end business unionism. For decades, these bad habits have been passed down from one administration caucus hand-picked leader to the next. The current delegate voting system contributes to these problems. I witnessed firsthand the arm-twisting tactics of the admin caucus as an alternate delegate representing Local 122 at the 2010 Constitutional Convention. Our servicing rep tried to pressure me to endorse the candidate for director in Region 2B, even though I couldn't even vote and he had no opposition. In 2018, I was a delegate for Local 869. All Region 1 delegates were instructed to sign a pledge card supporting Team Jones. And sorry, my screen went blank up. And another example of
All right, I think maybe we lost Martha. She comes back, and then we can let her finish. But for now, I think we should move on to the next speaker, who is Melissa G. Do we have Melissa? Okay. Next after Melissa will be Michael C. Is Michael here?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Michael Cannon. I'm a retired international representative of the UAW. There appears to be two choices in the upcoming UAW referendum, but really there's only one. Why? Because the choice of the delegate voting system is not a choice that will increase democracy in the UAW at all. In fact, if you vote for the delegate voting system, you will guarantee that the anti-democratic policies of the administration caucus remain intact forever. Why? Because only 13 people decide who will occupy the seats on the IEB in a union of 1 million members, months before the convention convenes. Those 13 people are the same people who currently hold all of the positions on the International Executive Board. The convention only acts as a rubber stamp to the decision made by the 13 members of the administration caucus, and it's always a foregone conclusion. This is the reason the administration caucus has controlled all of the offices on the UAW IEB for 70 years, and this domination of the UAW led to the corruption that has brought us here today. How do I know this? Because I have attended 9 UAW conventions over 30 years. I have been a member of the UAW for 51 years, and I have witnessed it myself. The only choice in the UAW referendum is the direct voting system, or one member, one vote. which guarantees the UAW membership will directly elect leaders who will be accountable to the UAW membership and not the administration caucus. The direct voting system will require candidates to compete for the positions on the IEB and create a fertile environment for the growth of new and vibrant leadership who are committed to advance the best interests of the membership. I urge every member and retiree to cast their vote for the direct voting system. If you need further information, go to the website 1m1v.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we have Roberta G. Is Roberta on?
Yep, I can't get my, okay, am I here? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to acknowledge those battling this disease, hoping that one day we will find a cure. However, I want to take a moment this evening to talk about another disease that has invaded the UAW body. It too begins with the letter C. It's the disease of corruption. Like cancer, currently there is no cure. Corruption is as old as human history, and it does not discriminate based on race, gender, identity, religion, or political affiliation. This disease has aggressively spread throughout all levels of our UAW body to the point that we are aggressively attacking it in the same manner we would any other disease that spread throughout our body. We are trying to contain it and send it into remission. Already, we surgically remove corruptors from permanently expel them from our UAW body. We have the UAW Monitor, the ethic officers, and advisory committee are targeting key areas where we know corruption exists in our accounting practices, joint funds, and charities, hoping as radiation to kill it and stop it from spreading. Now we, the members, have to be the UAW body immune system and protect it. We have to fight off the disease of corruption. And one way to do this is to change how we vote for international officers. What we do know is the current delegate voting system, corruption continues to grow and spread. So we need to try something new. With the direct voting method, each member votes for an international officer. We can hold them accountable, and every 4 years, they can experience consequences for their performance or action. Yes, direct voting is something new for us and can change and be unprecedented and frightening. We can sit back and do nothing and continue to watch our UAW body dwindle away, or we can choose direct voting. And let me add something. We are not dumb. We know the difference between a popular person and one that is competent to lead the UAW body. Sisters and brothers, think about it. For the first time in UAW history, every member, regardless of the rank in the organization, will have the opportunity to vote on the direct voting system in private and with free will. This moment in itself is a winning situation and progress. In closing, I pray for all of us to receive wisdom, peace of mind, and courage when casting your vote for the healing and the survival of the UAW body. I appreciate your attention. Be strong, be wise, be courageous. Thank you, Roberta Gaynor, UAW, Local 774, GM Powertrain, Tonawanda Engine Plant. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Next up, we have Scott H.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you for putting this on to the monitor and his team. This is an important forum. My name is Scott Holdison. I'm a 32-year member of UAW Local 551 in Chicago. I currently chair the steering committee for Unite All Workers for Democracy, UAWD. I want to point out that the direct voting system will bring accountability to our union. Obviously, there's been a lack of accountability in recent years. That fact is undeniable. The convention system has disenfranchised UAW members. There were 225 local unions who did not send delegates to the last constitutional convention. Most of those are small locals with limited resources. Small or large, they didn't want to waste resources on a convention that they knew the outcome was predetermined. Roughly 500 or roughly 50,000 UAW members were disenfranchised from the 2018 Constitutional Convention. Think about that for a minute. All of those members would now have their voice and vote count. I have some recommendations for the monitor and their team. When this referendum passes, we should have campaign finance limits with strict enforcement. The International Longshore and Warehouse Workers Union has campaign finance limits of $25,000 per candidate in their constitution. The UAW, being a bigger union, would need a higher amount, possibly 100,000. The Teamsters use Teamster magazine for accredited candidates to get their message out to everybody. The UAW could use Solidarity magazine and UAW Wire to get candidates' messages out. Accreditation could be done through a petition process like it is in the Teamsters. That's the way that state and federal officials get on the ballot for those elections. I highly recommend the direct voting system as your choice in the upcoming referendum. Please watch for your ballot coming out October 19th. And if you don't get one, get a hold of the monitor as quickly as possible so that you can have your voice heard for once. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Sheila Kay.
Hello, my name is Sheila. I'm a rank and file member of UAW 2865, the Union for Academic Student Workers at the University of California. I'm honored to address the UAW membership, and I ask that you support the direct voting system in the upcoming UAW-wide referendum on electing the IEB. Some academic workers have asked me, why should I care about this referendum vote? And I would say, while it might not be obvious, the IEB influences key aspects of Local 2865 and all UAW locals. The IEB authorizes strikes, they approve contracts, and they govern our bylaws. These are all decisions that deeply, deeply affect our working conditions, especially because we will be bargaining our next contract in 3 months. Academic workers make up about 20% of active UAW membership, but we have no representation on the IEB and very little voice at conventions. Because we're mostly on the East and West coasts, the cost of traveling and accommodations at conventions are prohibitive. And like Scott says, why go to a convention when you know the outcome is known? We should have a say in who is elected to the IEB, and direct elections would give us this voice. And finally, the former IEB's corruption has had a ripple effect in new organizing campaigns. Recently, a majority of student researchers at the University of California just filed for union recognition with the UAW. As I was organizing for this recognition campaign, the same question would come up over and over. Isn't the UAW a corrupt organization that embezzles dues? And it's really hard to counter that point when the same system that brought us Vance Pearson and Gary Jones and Dennis Williams, the delegate system, is still standing. The delegate system is harming our ability to organize new shops and to bring thousands of new unionists into a resurging labor movement. I'm so proud to be a union worker, and I want to build a union that I can trust to fight for a better contract for me, my coworkers, and my union siblings here all over the country. And this is why I support the direct voting system, or one member, one vote, in the referendum vote this fall. And I urge you to support direct voting as well. Your mail-in ballots should come around October 19th, and then they should be received by November 29th. Again, I urge everyone to vote for the direct voting system. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sheila. Next up, we have Tim D. Tim, I see you. I think you're, yeah.
There we go. I don't know how I can follow that. That was beautiful. Thank you, Sheila. And thank you for the student union, student body joining the UAW. It's great to see all the young and ambitious people joining. My name's Tim Doan, and I'm a Local 31 General Motors employee. 2 years ago, I was walking the picket line in one of the 40-day strikes. I've been working for almost 10 years. I'm still not full pay. I work an assembly line. I'm not learning anything new. I'm not going to get a college degree. I'm helping make profits every time I punch in. For some reason, I'm not getting shared profits. I'm not getting treated equally like my tier one coworkers. I've been constantly basically just forgotten about in the contracts. 20%, I believe, of us, my UAW members are tier two, and we're still fighting to get recognition and still full pay, full benefits. I worked across from a guy for, he's a temporary for 6 years. He had 3 kids. When we went on strike, you guys gave us $250, the UAW did, a week to survive. I had a 6-month-old kid. After 2 weeks, International said, here you go, you can have $25 more. To comment on the dark money, Gary Jones or Dennis Williams got a house put in his name for over $1 million. That's more than what you guys increased our strike fund do. The $25 a week goes immediately. For you to give somebody real estate with our union dues over $1 million, and for us to have to legally go take that back, and you talk about dark money, that's ridiculous. The reason we're here is because of dark money. Your vote is your choice, is your voice, and that's why we're here. Direct elections is the only way we can go, and if you don't vote for that, you're basically giving up your right to say anything, and you're allowing, you know, a couple of people to voice their opinion for the large, vast amount of us. Student workers obviously said they don't even have a representation. It's ridiculous the way that we even have to have this. The Teamsters, the feds, they implemented this. The fact that we even have to have a vote and a monitor is ridiculous. I'm a young UAW member. I love the union. I don't know anything but this is the first union job I ever had. I had to learn everything about the union myself, because everybody wants to keep to themselves in this union. Nobody wants to help each other out. We want competition within our union. We want transparency within our union. In the 2015
Tim, if you
contract,
could wrap it up, that would be great if you could wrap it up. Thank you.
Dennis Williams already said we're not bridging the gap. We're not going to end tier 2 system before the even negotiations happen. That's giving up defeat before it even starts. Vote for direct elections.
Thanks, Tim. Next up, we have Tim T.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Tim Thomas. I'm an appointed coordinator at Chicago Assembly Plant. I'm an elected official in my community here in Illinois. I'm a revolutionary member of United Auto Workers for the last 10 years. And I support the direct voting system. The UAW is over 86 years old. It is too male, it is too stale, and it has completely failed all of us. We must understand that the UAW has supported voting rights throughout its history. It has been leaders in civil rights. It recently recognized that the 56th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act had passed, the Voting Rights Act. And they supported the end of legalized discrimination against African Americans. The same system that elects our US senators, our presidents, and our congressmen, the same system that elects our local union presidents, our local union chairmen, and our local union reps is a direct voting system. It is the same system that elected me to public office in Illinois. It is the system that I support. It is the system that I hope you support. We have used it. We know it. It is tried and true. Any leader who tells you that the direct voting system isn't in our best interest should not be trusted. It is the same way that they have shoved every other president down our throat, even when we didn't want them. It is the same way that they kowtow and tell us to vote for members of Congress and our state and local officials. That is a direct voting system. It is the system that I support. It is a system that works. It is a system that even elected me, school board members. It elects our local union presidents and other leaders. Brothers and sisters, I urge you to support the direct voting system. It is even a system of one member, one vote that we use to organize new units inside of our union. If it is good enough to organize new members, it is good enough to do all this other work. It is good enough for the elected leaders of the UAW. Support direct elections. Thank you, brothers and sisters. And I hope that when you get your ballot on October 19th, you will support direct elections.
Thanks, Tim. So I believe that I accidentally skipped Mike D in line. So if Mike is here and would like to speak now, now's the time.
Thank you. Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Michael D. Giuseppe, Second Vice President of Local 259, Region 9A. Proud UAW member for 17 years, and I support direct elections. Direct elections are a correction mechanism to cronyism, corruption, and bad leadership. It's about creating a system of accountability. I've heard that word a lot tonight, and that's really important. Accountability to members over caucus loyalty and individual career pursuits. It's about putting authority and power into the members' hands where it belongs. Direct elections makes leaders beholden to the members, not their careers, not their clique. Again, it's about accountability. It's been missing for a long time, brothers and sisters. They didn't have to answer to us, so they didn't. One of the talking points I keep hearing for opposing is to discredit this direct elections as a popularity contest, or they'll pick bad leaders. This is insulting to the hardworking, dues-paying members. We're to believe the members aren't capable. I mean, what's the alternative? They're going to keep choosing for us the same system on and on and on. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't the system work on the local level? It was the members. It's the members that led the charge, that did file charges, that tried to file a constitutional convention, that filed the Article 30s, the 31s, the 32s against Gary Jones. Current system failed us horribly during our worst crisis. All any member has to do is to look at the November 2nd, 2019 IEB meeting minutes, which, by the way, you have to go to your sub-regional office. A transparent, accountable union would have that available to every single member. Despite all the scandals, Gary Jones was allowed to dictate the terms of his departure. It wasn't until they were embarrassed, again, by the members, leading the charge in the press, filing the charges, getting people active, that they were forced to remove him. We're now supposed to accept that the same people that capitulated to Gary Jones are going to fix it. And there's good people there, I know that, but they're either compromised, complicit, or inept. Those same people that stood by and idly capitulated to Gary Jones are going to tell us the current system's fine, we're fixing it, there's only a few bad apples, which is an expression that should make everyone upset. Let's use a little common sense here. We have 2 former presidents in jail, 13 convictions. The FCA just paid a $30 million fine for successfully bribing the UAW.
Mike, if you could wrap it up, that would be great. And thanks.
The system's broken and we need to fix it. And we need to put power back into the membership. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next up, we have Todd B.
All right, I'll hit the start button. My name is Christopher Todd Brink. I retired after February this year, 2021, from Local 211, Northwest Ohio. Greetings and good evening to panelists for UAW Monitorship Zoom webinar. I'm proud to be a part of a generally good faith membership of 1 million strong. I thank you for allowing me to promote democracy and to let you know that while I was an active employee, UAW member, I had every democratic opportunity to nominate and campaign for local fellow member delegates to the Constitution conventions, where its executives were chosen and UAW business has been conducted and reported historically. I have been an advocate for democracy and improvements, contractually submitting resolutions for one member, one vote, and each time an ambiguous, mysterious, distant, or local answer to this one member, one vote question effort has been, let's say couple quote unquotes, that it is always defeated, or after a convention, it is the microphones don't have any volume, or someone locally or regional or some other bunch will take care of that one member, one vote. So I am personally overjoyed now to have this referendum, but I also believe that more transparency and accountability is necessary, continually improving, moving forward in solidarity. I also believe that newly elected officials need to expose and correct corporations' bad faith negotiations, regaining and correcting takeaways, righting the wrongs. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Next, we have Tony C. Do we have Tony here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm on my telephone because the internet where we live is down. So I want to say good evening to everyone. My name is Tony Candela, former president of Local 136 and a former UAW staff employee. I'm here really to speak for the numerous retirees that we have in our location here. They are not opposed to the 1M1V vote. Their concern is that they would like to have the capability of a retiree being able to run for an IEB board job. Now, for 70 years, the delegate election was fine. We had leaders that were trustworthy and could extract agreements that were benefited the membership. And they say now, Tony, we no longer have that, but we need a voice for us at the IEB board. So if they say they truly want democracy, then they should allow a retiree to run for an IEB board position. And they are very strong in that. And they're kind of at a disadvantage because we're from a closed plant. We have no local union no more. So they kind of rely on the information that they get on which way to go. But if not a person known to a former member and retiree, they say we're scared to vote for the 1M1V if a retiree that we are associated with over in the past has not a right to vote. So if you want true democracy, then you've got to open this up to the retirees to run for an IEB board position. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. I'm sorry, that was Tony. Thanks, Tony. Next, we have William B.
Hello, am I unmuted? Okay. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. I don't know if anyone can hear me because no one's saying.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bill Bagwell. I'm a member of UAW Local 174, home local of Walter Reuther. The people that want us to stick with the delegate election, get stuck with delegates, want to talk about money. And they want to talk about who's going to pay for the election and it can't be done. Well, that's what the company tells us when we ask for health care. That's what the company tells us when we ask for a raise. There's no money, we can't pay for that. Our union has had enough money stolen, and if we just got the money back that was stolen, we'd be able to pay for this general election. The internet is here. We can use it. We can have open forum on the internet just like this for our elections. There's plenty of opportunities. Our leaders get up at election time and they tell us every vote counts. Make sure you get out there and vote. Vote early, get your family to vote. But in our union, they want to tell us, no, don't vote, have a delegate election, and we'll control everything and we'll steal everything like we've been. I can say that because we have leaders that are in jail right now for stealing our money. So I can say that they're thieves because they are thieves. So don't stick us with delegates. We have the means, we have the intelligence, we have the people to figure out how to do it. And let's get one member, one vote, which is what our union should have. Again, they're hypocrites. We have to be able to vote them out of office when they're done. Count every vote, but not ours. You know, I mean, that's ridiculous. All right, thank you. And solidarity, let's get this changed.
Thank you, William. So I heard that Martha is back on the line or on the Zoom, and I know that Martha, you got cut off before while you were speaking. So if you wanted to finish up, you can do so now. Are you here, Martha?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I think this is where I left off. In 2018, I was a delegate for Local 869. All Region 1 delegates were instructed to sign a pledge card supporting Team Jones, as in Gary Jones. I did not sign, and as punishment, was not entitled to the t-shirt given to delegates from the region. I had changed locals because of deception and deal making involving the Chrysler plant in Twinsburg, Ohio. During the 2009 bankruptcy bailout, the International told us there was a clause in the contract modifications that would keep our plant open. We learned a few days later the plant would close. Dirty deals like this and subsequent bad contracts, even when FCA returned to profitability, but were pushed by leaders who took bribes from the company. That's the corrupting influence of money that we have to worry about. This must stop. We are part of a global working class under siege. Social justice unionism is the way forward. We can only get there if we win direct elections of the IEB, one member, one vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Last, we have Zachary V.
Good evening, UAW family. My name is Zach Valdez, and I'm a proud Local 2110 member and shop steward at Columbia University in New York City. I'm speaking tonight in support of the direct voting system. I did not grow up in a union household, but it's for this reason that I respect my union family so much. My father is Mexican-American from a family of migrant farm workers who struggle to overcome poverty and discrimination in South Texas. My 66-year-old mother cannot afford to retire. She's a school secretary making $30,000 a year, having lost her job in the pandemic because she has no union protection. My family is a cautionary tale for the rest of us. Ask yourselves, friends, what would your life be like without the UAW? The UAW is an incredible organization and one we need to protect, but our union is at threat. Since 1979, our union has lost 75% of its membership. That's 1.1 million people. On the administration caucus's watch and under the current delegate system. If we allow this decline to continue, then we will lose organizing, bargaining, and strike power, and our union will cease to exist. My cautionary tale will become your reality. The admin caucus has governed the UAW for 70 years and has made concession after concession to management, while having the gall to embezzle our union dues, take kickbacks from corporations like Fiat Chrysler, and erode the democracy of our union. In fact, there's been some breaking news regarding the John Deere proposed contract tonight. It is leaked a day early, and it completely eliminates pensions for new hires. So this is exactly the sort of corruption and kickbacks and concessions that we're talking about. The delegate system may once have worked, but it doesn't anymore. Our power as one union family can only come from re-democratizing our system by giving every rank and file member a voice in our elections. The AC had their chance. Today we say enough. It's time for direct elections. This is our chance. Are you going to let this historical moment pass you by? Vote yes for the direct voting system. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. All right, so I just want to circle back now at this time to see if there's anybody on the Zoom who was previously registered to speak tonight that did not get a chance to speak or was not here when I called their name. Anybody else? Okay, great. So I'll kick it back to Neil now.
All right, thank you, everyone, and thank you for participating in this forum. It is the glories of democracy, and it was really very informative and helpful for me, and I hope it was helpful and informative for others who are listening in. I wanted to address some of the questions that were raised, and since I know the panelists, I think have had trouble asking questions through the Q&A function, I'll open it up after answer the questions that we have to the panelists to orally ask the questions, and we'll do our best. Some of these I know the answers to. Some of them we're going to look and track down answers to, and we'll if we don't have an answer today, we'll put them up. We have an FAQ on the website with answers to frequently asked questions that we received, and so we can include updates there as well. I just want to start off there. One of the comments, a number of comments today were made about, and we've heard this before about, potential intimidation or improper conduct, whether historically or even currently. I really encourage people to come forward to our hotlines. And so we have two hotlines that are available on our website, which I think is uawmonitor.com. It's easy to find. There's also a link on the UAW's website to our website. One is all things related to the election, and the other one is the general hotline for other misconduct. We can't investigate and act on something if we don't know about it. And sometimes we get very general allegations. Oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. But there's no specificity. There's no date, time, place for us to actually be able to investigate. And so I strongly encourage that if there's any instances of misconduct or stuff that you think is misconduct, but you're not sure. Sometimes we get allegations of misconduct. It turns out it's not misconduct, and that's okay. But we'll look into it. We look in, every allegation we look into. But we can't do it if we don't have the specificity and detail of what the allegation is. So if you are aware of any type of misconduct, if it's election, please go to the election hotline. If it's just related to general misconduct within the union, please come to our hotline, and we will follow up and try to get to the bottom of whatever the question is. So let me start with that. As to some of the specific questions, one question is under the rules which prohibit using union funds for advocacy, what about using union funds or speaking about neutral aspects of the election? In other words, the existence of the referendum, the existence of this forum, the fact that this forum will be published on our website, the fact that we exist. There's no limitation on providing neutral information. Advocacy is forbidden using union resources. That means union email addresses, speaking at union meetings, using union resources. But providing neutral information is not forbidden. It's permitted. And so if you do have specific instances where someone is being told or prevented from providing neutral information, again, neutral information, let us know and we can look into it. But there is no limitation. Now I will say, if this amendment, which is currently being contemplated by the parties, is proposed and advanced in front of the court, it's going to open things up a lot as far as the ability, of union members to advocate, more in connection with existing union meetings and with potentially with emails and stuff like that. And so it's one of those stay tuned things, and we don't know if the parties will file that amendment. That's their discretion, not ours. But I imagine if something's going to happen, it'll happen relatively soon, and the rules will be adopted to do with that. There was a lot of questions on what happens if the referendum direct voting part passes, and what does that look like? There's a lot of questions about that. Consent decree directs us to work with the UAW itself in informing those rules and those processes. And so we can't tell you what it's going to look like yet, because that process doesn't begin unless and until direct voting is passed in this referendum. But I think, a lot of the as we did with these rules, we will certainly solicit the views of UAWD, of local unions, people who contact us. We take in all of that information, and when we think it's good ideas, we advocate for it. We can't impose it. That's not how the consent decree is set up, but we can push for things that make sense. I will say it also, there was a lot of references to other international unions that have direct voting. And that's obviously where I think the process would start, is finding out what works for other international unions that have direct voting, and seeking to take the best practices and work from there. But again, that process really can't begin under the consent decree unless and until the direct voting passes the referendum. Another question is about the email list. So the email list is generated from Luis, which is the system that local unions have to share information. It's where the addresses came from, and it is where the email addresses came from. When we started this process, there were only 40,000 email addresses that were uploaded in Luis, and that's what we had. We've been strongly encouraging not only the updating of addresses, but also of emails. That number is now at 100,000, which is better than 40,000, obviously, but is still not enough. But the process for that is the local unions have to collect that information, and they have to upload it to Luis, and that's how that information gets uploaded to international, and how we get it to the vendor. And so I just strongly encourage all of the locals to continue to use the system and upload it. And that's the way we're going to get this email address list expanded and better. And we've tried reaching out. We've tried sending notices. We have stuff on our website, but really that's the key way to get to continue to get this email list improved, which obviously needs to be not just for this referendum, but just in general. We got a question about a method for verifying whether a ballot was received. Right now, our current system doesn't include that. A question that we've already forwarded to the vendor, but have not yet gotten a response to, is whether someone could pay for registered mail or return receipt mail. We don't know the answer to that question, if that would work with the PO box that they're going to, but we'll post it on the website and answer the question directly once we get that answer. But unfortunately, we're not ready to answer that question right now. There's a question about VIBA board as far as retiree addresses, that some retirees have not gotten postcards. We have an inquiry into that. It's a little tricky because of the confidentiality around VIBA, but we're trying to press that and to see if we can get access to that list to help update, at least compare it to our current list, to see if we can improve it. We've got some other requests out there. We're constantly looking to find the ways to test and double check our list, even, again, continuing through October 19th and beyond. That is a high priority for us. And of course, anyone who has not received a postcard, to follow up. and that making sure that their address is updated through the system. And then of course, and again, if they do not receive a ballot, contact us and we will make sure that they get one. That is the one way to assure that a retiree or anyone else who's not received a ballot gets one, is to reach out to us and to contact us. Let me go to the questions. I think that's a number of them, but let's take a look here. As far as making members aware of the upcoming vote, we're doing what we can is the answer. We try to use the platforms that we have. I've used my personal social media today to try to raise awareness of this. We will continue to use the email addresses that are provided to provide information. A lot of the information about the referendum is going to be included in the ballot, which is going to have, it's not just a ballot, but it'll have information about the referendum and what the ballot is all about, and a description. That is the big mailing that's going to go out to as many, to more than 1 million people whose addresses we have. That is going to be, the biggest and most prominent way of reaching out. And again, I think if the parties are able to agree on on an amendment to the consent decree, that may also be helpful in disseminating information by those who are advocating one position or the other. And I would say the other thing is, please share with us your ideas. We are very invested in wanting to get the word out about this referendum to as many people as possible. We want to see highest vote participation as possible. And so, Andrew and Scott have shared with us ideas from UAWD, but others should share your ideas. And, we don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and whatever we can do within our rules and our budget, we will do to try to raise awareness. Over here. Andrew, I see you made a mention of UAW Wire, and so we'll look into that as well. And as I said, keep the good ideas coming. I think that's most of them. I think with that, maybe it's time. First of all, just checking with my team, Lisa, Glenn, Lori, Kelsey, did I screw anything up there? Because it is certainly possible. Did I get any of those answers wrong and need to be corrected?
It's Glenn, Neil, I don't think so.
Okay, that's broken clock twice a day. So that's good news. So let's open up additional questions to panelists. I'm just going to go. So if you're a panelist and you have a question, use the hand raising function, and I'll just call on folks in the order that I see their hands on my screen. So Andrew, why don't you start? You've got your hand up. Do I have to unmute you, or can you? Yeah, okay, good.
It's like someone else just said. I don't know if that was listening, but thank you. And thanks for your answers, Neil. And thanks for all of the work that you and your team are putting in. Appreciate it. There's a couple of things. Yeah, thank you for reading the UAW Wire suggestion. Yeah, we know there are multiple ways that thousands, tens of thousands don't know, but there are other ways that emails are going out. So we really would like to encourage, I'm saying we, but I just mean lots of people, honestly, because I've heard this from so many sources, encourage you to use those, find them, aggregate them, and use them, because I know tens of people at other locals that have still never heard about this referendum or had only heard about it in the last week. And I think, UAW is just not doing, at least many of us think, that much to get the word out, and you all getting those emails and sending it out, I think that'd be amazing. So that was my one point. My other is around a piece of sort of a provision that I'm confused about, and I'm sorry I put all this text in the chat, but it's something I'm genuinely confused about, which is that I don't understand that there's something that you've been saying, which is that there might be an amendment to the consent decree. This is something that I know many people are still very hopeful does not occur in terms of not allowing the UAW leadership to use any funds, which many of us think would be immensely destructive and potentially very coercive. But separately, there's this notion that any resource that is openly and meaningfully accessible in an equitable way to anyone should be able to be used, or at least there's no prohibition on it legally. Yet it seems like the rules of the consent decree are being interpreted different ways in different moments. I have had my local president has had an extensive correspondence with your team about being able to use some of our local resources as long as every member gets access. But then at other locals, people are being told that they can't speak up at a meeting that everyone is able to go to. And it's something that's very confusing. And it does seem like it's quashing communication. So it's something important to me and I think many other members.
Yeah, it is confusing. And we have the consent decree that we were given, as far as these prohibitions. And, the parties are trying to clarify some of these issues, which is one of the reasons why there is a movement to amend the consent decree. I don't think it would be, Andrew, I don't think they're contemplating, removing all restrictions on use of union spending. I think that, that would not be a part of it. But, again, we are a creature of the contract that was entered into between the parties and signed by the judge, and we operate according to that. But because the rules are confusing, we strongly encourage any local that has a question to contact us. And we've been in contact with a number of the different locals, which is why, and we're trying to hopefully clear this up, and we should get something on the website and an FAQ to address this. But that's the best way to deal with it. If a local has a question, can we do this? Can we not do this? Send us an email through our website, and we will try to get you an answer back as quickly as we can. I think Glenn can probably talk to that specific issue as far as access to, equal access to information. I think the general gist is it has to truly be equal access. And if there's any, some access is more equal than others, then that would be extraordinarily problematic. But Glenn, do you just want to chime in on this point? Because I know that you spent a lot of time with it.
Sure. I'm happy to, Neil, and thanks for the question, Andrew. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So there's a couple things I'll just say in response. On the equal access question that Neil has articulated well, there's certain kinds of things that are clearly and undeniably equal access. And for example, with respect to the resolution that 5118 passed, it is giving a member or group of members within the local access without being limited in any way with respect to what side of the question they're supporting to a mailing list to communicate with members. Totally permissible. Not that it's not a use of union resources, but it is clearly free to both sides equally. Speaking at a meeting is more challenging because while theoretically you could let anyone speak on the issue and there are opportunities for that, that is not clearly and concretely equal because people may be given more time than others just by circumstance, or more people may have come to a particular meeting if they knew they could speak. It's just not as clearly able to be done as equitably as access to a mailing list. And again, all of this is coming ultimately from the guidance that we're receiving from OLMS, which, as the consent decree specifically requires, we're consulting with them on quite honestly, a daily basis on these issues as they come up. And they are experts on Title IV and its application. The other thing I will add to what Neil said is and to your question, Andrew, the nature of the amendment conversation really is about the very issue you raised, which is the ability to freely speak about this issue without being encumbered by whether it's at a meeting, whether there's someone there also to speak on the other side. Definitely not about wholesale use of union funds by locals or international. I will say that on either side of the question to use those resources to communicate in a way that's unfair to folks that don't have access to resources like that. So that's not the nature of the amendment conversation. It's much more about to attack the problem that you raise.
sorry, I'm on mute. The statement of pandemic. Andrew, we'll come back to you if we have time. I just want to make sure we have time to get everyone who wants to ask a question to ask a question. And so let me go to Duncan. I can let's see if I used to be able to unmute you, but I can't now. There we go.
So I'm aware that you've said, and some of the leadership has said as well, that there's an ongoing conversation with the UAW leadership and the OLMS about their ability to, the extent to which and their ability to participate in this referendum. So how do the rest of us get to participate in that conversation? Because it feels honestly a little one-sided.
Well, the conversation. I'm sorry, Duncan.
Well, I'm not aware of anybody on the pro direct election side who's had an opportunity to talk to the Office of Labor Management. What's the final? What does the S stand for?
Yeah, just let me just help correct that. So there's just sort of two different things going on. The consent decree, which governs this referendum and this monitorship, was entered into between the Department of Justice on one end and the UAW on the other side. And so if there's going to be any type of change in the consent decree, that requires those two parties to agree to a change. And then that still has to be signed off by the judge who initially signed the consent decree. That's sort of the legal process. And so that's the process that is ongoing. And that is really between Department of Justice, the UAW, and the judge. Now, as Glenn has said, we've tried to weigh in where we see concerns and issues. We have communicated concerns that we've learned from our canvassing of information, including talking to people who are proponents of the direct election system. I think the Department of Justice has also reached out and spoken to proponents of the direct election system. So I don't think this is a case where the voices are not being heard. But ultimately, because the UAW and Department of Justice are the signatories to the consent decree, they're the ones who will make that petition to the court. And then the court will decide what to do next. Previously, and what the judge does is what the judge does, including whether or not the judge decides to solicit other views. And so that's sort of the process.
So if I wanted to make my views known to the Department of Justice, how would I do that?
I think that you could take a look at their website and figure out how to contact them. I'm not really sure what the direct line would be, but because again, okay. we're not the Department of Justice. But again, I would say if you have a strong view, send us an email, and we don't ignore the emails. We take them into consideration. We have no authority over amendments to the consent decree. We're not really contemplated in there, but we talk to the parties all the time.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Scott, you have your hand up. There we go.
Hi, Neil. Thank you for taking my question. You were contemplating post-referendum, should the direct voting system prevail, that you'll be working with the UAW to craft the language for the amendments to our Constitution. Is that correct?
That is what the consent decree directs us to do.
Okay. Will then the delegates to the 2022 Constitutional Convention need to ratify those? And will there be an opportunity for delegates to propose amendments to those if they're not, possibly to their liking?
It's a really good question, Scott. The way the consent decree reads is that we will craft the proposed amendments to the Constitution, but those amendments would have to be ratified at the convention. I don't know if the consent decree contemplates whether or not the monitor UAW crafted amendments are then rejected at the Constitution. I mean, in some ways, so for example, referendum passes and rules are crafted to implement direct voting, and then the delegates don't vote it in. That would create an interesting question. One there, I believe that the consent decree would rule, but it's one that it's like many bridges. We worry about them when we cross them, but ultimately, the delegates do need. My belief is the delegates have to enact it. Whether or not the delegates can change what is agreed upon. To be honest, we just haven't looked at that issue yet, but we certainly will as we get closer. If and when the referendum passes, it's a tomorrow question. Not really.
Okay, and thank you for answering that question. And I would encourage you to,
such as I did, such as an answer that it was.
I would encourage you to get the email lists from the UAW that they use to communicate on a daily basis with their leadership, with the membership through UAW Wire. They have a multitude of lists that are available to the union that they're just not turning over to you. I would highly recommend that you request those of them.
No, we absolutely will. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
John? No. Sorry, John, we're trying to unmute you. There you go. Oh, I'll try it again.
Okay.
There, we got you.
Okay. Just to reiterate a question in regards to the voting. Again, if the membership elects to go 1M, 1V, it's naturally totally new to the membership and to everybody else, and everybody has their own opinion on it. Again, I have had the opportunity to meet with a number of retired chairmen of their locals in the Detroit metro area and in the St. Louis area. And I had an opportunity to walk them through the consent decree and in regards to how the referendum was going to work. And we had the question and answer session at the end of the meeting. And the retires are honored that they could possibly have the opportunity to be a part in electing the IE board for the very first time, which is new to the active membership and to the retires naturally. But the concern has been, if we're going this far with it, are we going to complete it by letting everybody also have the qualifier to run for an IEB board position? And I know you said something earlier that you were going to refer it to other international unions in regards to their possible voting process. I only got to say this, that if we went this far to empower our membership, including retires, surely we ought to be able to empower a retiree to run for an IE board position, especially when we have 600,000 of them. And in the last, as I said earlier, in the last 15 years, the retires have not been any part of a discussion in negotiations. And as I said earlier, I was the top AA in the Chrysler department in 1999, and the acting vice president, after the vice president passed away from a massive heart attack, was Stephen P. Yokish. And no retires were forgotten in that set of negotiations. And all the previous negotiations, they were not forgotten, but now they are. So I think truly it's about time that we give the retires a vote and a representative on the IE board, as up to including the president. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, John. And just to be clear, the consent decree, our role in crafting amendments to the Constitution is limited, right, to converting it from a delegate system to a direct voting system. So other types of constitutional questions, such as who's qualified to run for office, those would be required through the normal amendment of the Constitution process. It wouldn't be part of the process that we would shepherd through. We just, we have the authority that we have that's dictated by the consent decree. So just to be clear, I don't want anyone to think that our role is any greater than it is as set forth in that agreement.
Okay, well, and saying what you're saying, I appreciate that. The only thing I'd say about the Constitution, it's silent about retirees running from any IAB position because they've never been afforded, as you know, to vote before.
So again, I think that when we're on the other side of this, and if there is a change in the system, there would be a convention, and the Constitution would change at that convention for sure. And sort of what that all looks like, we'll have a little bit more clarity if in fact the direct voting system passes. Let me switch over to Todd. I'll see if I can unmute you. I can't.
Can you unmute me? I'm unmuted. Okay, very well. Forums in the future. Gosh, so many questions are coming up. If I'm at a retiree meeting and a member says he doesn't have has not received his verification of address, if I'm at that meeting in a union facility, am I permitted to give them, let's say, for example, a one member, one vote .org piece of literature, which really just reflects the decree one member, one vote referendum?
So I'm going to defer to Glenn on the specific retiree facility, but I will say that in general, you could certainly say if you didn't get your ballot, you should contact the monitor at his website and send in a request or telephone. There's a telephone or email, to request to get a ballot, because that's not advocacy. That's just simply informing of a neutral fact, which is how someone should get the ballot. And I strongly would encourage you to do so. As far as the use of union resources, in that context, I have to defer to Glenn. I don't know if Glenn knows the answer.
I'm always worried about giving specific advice because every situation has a lot of variables. And in that one, Todd, I would say whether or not union resources are being employed based on whether someone is on the clock when they're advocating, which that would be, obviously, it would be a version of advocacy to advise a member of the particular side that you believe and why. Presumably literature would have that on it, why the one member, one voice vote should be supported. So it's sort of tricky. I will say a couple things. Generally speaking, as the rules indicate, we offer some common examples of when the situation may come up. And in those examples, if somebody is responding in a situation where they would otherwise be on the clock or at work, but they're responding to a question, to a direct inquiry in a way that is relatively incidental and does not impede the workplace environment, the job being done, or the union business being done if it's at a union meeting, usually it's okay for someone to respond to an inquiry. For example, if someone walked down the hall in that setting when they're on the work and on the job and said to you, Todd, who are you voting for? In this case, it's not a candidate election, but what side of the referendum are you voting on? And you said one member, one voice. That is incidental to job. You're not at the job site trying to have a rally or create a situation that's disruptive to what the work is, or in the union hall, disruptive to a union meeting. So I think the rules, and I would direct you back to the rules, kind of do the best they can to give you some example of situations where it's okay. I think Neil's answer, though, is the most important one, which is if your goal in that interaction is to, and you're worried at all that you would run afoul of the rules, if your goal in the interaction is just simply to make sure someone knows where to go to get a ballot, or to learn more about the fact of the referendum, directing them to the website is totally permissible and recommended. Again, going back to Andrew's question as well, this is the kind of thing that we're trying to, or at least the parties are discussing, trying to address.
Well, the decree itself is one member, one vote, so it's kind of puzzling. And regarding a democracy, I'd be all for personally, a futuristic electronic voting securely. I mean, is there any research being done by the vendor or the monitor for some new modern method that doesn't cost as much as face-to-face, conventional county board of elections or poll workers?
Yeah. So Todd, absolutely, we've explored this issue. It was not feasible for the referendum, in part because, again, just to say it again, it requires, any type of the mechanism of voting requires agreement amongst the monitor and the UAW, and it needs to be approved by OLMS. And to be frank, OLMS has had security concerns about securing the secret ballot on the time frame that we have. I would say that, again, this is just prognostication, but if this referendum and direct voting is implemented, I think that would be something to continue to explore to make sure that the right security platform could be established, that the email address list could be updated. I mean, one of the problems of electronic voting, putting aside concerns in the Department of Labor of the security of direct voting, of online balloting, is also the question of enfranchisement. And as bad as and challenging as the mailing list was in the first instance, the electronic mail system, as we've discussed earlier, was at 40,000. And so I think it's a really good question. I think it's an important question, and I think it's one that would be front of mind if this referendum does end up result in the imposition of direct voting. So
thank you.
Sure. Eric. Oh, let me try to unmute you. I don't know if I'm unmuting. This thing that says ask to unmute, and I click on that. But is Lisa, are you actually unmuting? Is somebody?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Tapping buttons randomly. And
not me.
Maybe it's working. I don't know.
Yep, I'm unmuting as well for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Please go, Eric. Thank you.
So the first quick question, which will relate it to the actual question I want to get to, under this referendum, and under the leadership of your team in this consent decree, our local leadership required to inform the members about this referendum neutrally? Are they required?
I don't think there's anything in the consent decree that requires, Glenn will let me know, that requires local leaders to do so. Now, in my view, it's good practice that local leaders, international leaders, all leaders should be, encouraging participation in this referendum, that people should be aware of it and they should be voting. It's the future of this remarkable organization that's obviously gone through a very traumatic time recently, and members should participate, and leadership should be encouraging participation in this. But that enthusiasm for participation does not translate in our ability to compel. I would say that a local leader does not have the authority to, foreclose all discussion, neutral discussion about the existence of it. That is something that is different. But again, it's because of the rules that are currently in place, the way the consent decree was enacted, there are difficult lines, and trying to avoid the crossing of those lines. And as Glenn alluded to, if the parties can get this amendment passed, it will remove some of those lines and just sort of make it a little bit more straightforward, so people can can speak their minds, frankly, in more settings without having to worry of running afoul of a rule that was really more tailored for candidate elections, not for a referendum like this.
Okay. Well, I was kind of looking for the short answer, but I appreciate the long answer.
don't
The
think
reason why, no, you did fine there. The reason why I asked is because I'm a general counsel delegate at Local 600, which is ground zero for the caucus there. Matter of fact, Roy Gamble actually came out of the plant that I'm in, and it's been a 40-year plus caucus that nobody has been able to defeat. So the point of that is, when I asked at this general council meeting, our leadership about getting the information out, the second vice president said, it's not our responsibility. So they're not doing it. It's Auto Worker Caravan and UAWD teaming together to get this information out. The leadership is not doing it. And we're talking about a leadership of 30,000 members and 48 units. But the other thing that I want to say to you is that I think the Lewis system may be a failure. And here's where I see there may be a failure in that. You're saying that the information has to come from the local, then it goes to the international, who gives it to the vendor. Is that correct? They're just looking for a yes or no answer there.
I think I could do that one. Yes. Right, Glenn?
Yeah, the Lewis system is maintained by the international, and we've been very involved with the collection of data and the transfer to the vendors, but it's going from the Lewis system to a direct upload to the vendor. Correct.
Okay, but I'm just trying to make the answer short so I can give everybody a chance. So that's got to come from the local to the international, correct?
That's correct.
That's where the problem is going to be, because the local can admit or decide who or what they want to send to the international. And I can tell you from Local 600, that's the heart of the AC caucus. So it behooves me that whatever other locals that support them, this may be the problem of who's going to get the ballots or not. So just something you may want to consider.
Thank you. I mean, this is the system we have. But as I said, we're going to continue to try to pursue other ways to verify and check the address list. But most importantly, using your advocacy, let people know if they don't get a ballot, they need to come to us and we will get them a ballot. I mean, that's the fail safe here that we have, is that if the list isn't, despite the remarkable efforts that are going on right now to get this mailing list to be as updated and as inclusive. And it's not just going back to the locals, it's using the post office's change of address database. The reason why we sent the postcards, actually isn't to notify everyone, although that is obviously an important benefit. The main reason why we do it is to get, returns. And so when we get returns, then we know that this is a person we need to follow up on. The vendor needs to follow up on, the union needs to follow up on to try to get their new address. And so these are all the steps that are being taken, which is not to say we take all these steps, we're going to be at 100%. We're not. But the fail safe here is reach out to us if you don't get a ballot, and we're going to get you a ballot. I mean, I think it's not perfect, but it's what we got. But again, share your ideas for updating and checking the address list, and we'll continue to do our best to implement it. Cody, you've been very patient. Let me ask you to unmute, see if that works. I'll hit it again. Will, if you're on there, maybe you can give me a little help here. Okay, there you are. All right, Cody.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So my local has 3 Facebook pages. They have one official local 602 Facebook page, which we're not allowed to post on. It's run by the local, and then we also have 2 somewhat unofficial Facebook pages where the local will give us information throughout the day. What's going on with the company, this and that, blah blah blah. Being an advocate now for one member, one vote and being registered, am I allowed to post and advocate for the referendum, one member, one vote, on the unofficial local Facebook pages without having any issues?
So I think the answer is, as of right now, official use of social media would be a use of union resources and prohibited. I think that is one of the things that could be changed under an amendment, which is to allow use of social media by both by both sides, international.
Is
and local.
is that even being? I mean, it's an unofficial site. Like I said, not official.
So unofficial. The answer is I have no idea because I don't know exactly what that means. So if union resources are being used to maintain it, to run it, to post material on it, then that would be a use of union resources. If unofficial means completely unaffiliated with the union and it's there's no union resources being involved, then maybe it's okay. But the problem with official versus unofficial is and I'll defer to Glenn on this one. I think it's really a question of the question of whether there's any use of union resources, even if it's quote unquote unofficial, then it would be problematic. Glenn, I mean, does that sum it up? I just don't know what unofficial means.
Yes, that's the problem. I mean, it sounds like if unofficial refers to a group of members within the local that post information that's union related on a private
that run it
social media, I think the only question is that's on its face is fine, but the only question comes down to, as Neil said, whether or not there is any use of union resources, the timing of people making posts while they're on duty. It really depends on the facts of that. Like I see that Andrew is shaking his head. So I think you guys may know that the facts are probably consistent with what you think, which is it isn't using any union resources and it's not really run by the local. It just references the local and the information. But without you'd have to make sure that no union resources are being used to in any way use that site, because that would run afoul of the rules.
Yeah,
even if it's unofficial.
And we acknowledge the absurdity of this conversation. Well, that's all I can say. It's not ideal. But yeah, Frank, you've been the most patient of everyone as far as waiting. Let's see if we can figure out how to unmute you. Oh, that's very painful.
Can you hear me? I wanted to follow up with a question that I posed previously to the UAW Monitor's office, and that has to do with the retirees who belong to, who have chapters from closed locals, which is the case for me. My local closed, my plant closed, my local office is closed, and how would the retirees know what to do, who to contact? And I understand I can advise an individual retiree to contact you, but we might have 800, 600 retirees out of my local. I learned recently that my retirees chapter was actually assigned to another local, but there's been no official communication from the region telling all those retirees that in the event that you have not received your card, et cetera, contact local, the local 22, which is who we've been assigned to. And they would not know to do that unless the region contacts the retirees from closed locals. And I wonder if there's a procedure in place by the UAW Monitor to compel the UAW regions to do this, where they have chapters from closed locals who've been assigned to other local unions. And they don't know it. My local retirees do not know that the chapter has been assigned to another local, to local 22.
Frank, did you get a postcard?
I did receive a postcard.
Okay, so I'll kick this over to Glenn. So I think that's, it's not within the jurisdiction of the monitorship to direct the relationship between locals and their retirees. It is the jurisdiction of the monitorship to make sure that every eligible voter gets a ballot. So the good news is that you got the postcard, which means you're going to get a ballot and you're going to get an opportunity to vote. Notwithstanding that concern, with that said, we'll be more than happy to flip that concern over to the UAW so that they're aware of it. Glenn, I don't know if you have any further thoughts on this.
No, I mean, that's right. I mean, again, the information that we're using, at least at first blush, to send out the postcards, which is just an effort to really test the list, was the quality of the list that the locals have that is uploaded on the Lewis system. So that has been, I think, dramatically improved, partly based on the postcard system and what was returned, and the responsiveness of the unions, which has been substantial, the local unions, to update the list. So I think the mailing list for the ballots is far better than the postcard list, which was the intent. If people didn't receive a postcard, it in no way means they're not going to get a ballot because the locals have dramatically improved the Lewis system since the postcards went out. But as Neil said, if there are, this has happened as well, we know large groups of individuals that have been identified and are in the Lewis system or being entered to the Lewis system in time to receive ballots that were not in the Lewis system in July. So, but if there's any specific follow-up, we can talk offline. You could email the monitor hotline and we respond and deal with all those inquiries.
Yeah, I think it's worth just reemphasizing the list that the postcards went out to is very different from the list we have today, and that list is improving every day. There has been, it's not always visible, but there's been a lot of effort that's going on that by us, by our vendor, and by the, and frankly by the UAW itself, in really working to improve that list. It does not mean that we got to, that we can stop or sit on our laurels. That's why we want to get this information and we want these ideas, and continue to work to do so. All right, Andrew, round two. Let's see if we get you unmuted. Impossible to mute Andrew for long, that is for sure.
Thanks, Neil. I'm glad you and I are on the same page in that regard. Yeah, thank you. So I would just say, sorry, could I just ask quickly before I ask my question? You all have said so much incredibly useful, concretely informative stuff. I just want to make sure that this is going to remain live and public online so that we can literally share. I know people who I would like to share minute-long clips from this Q&A, not just from the initial webinar, so that people understand this. Is that going to remain true?
Yeah, this is going to go up on our website. It's going to be maintained on our website for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. And one other thing on that front, and I guess I'll get to this point in a second. I think that between the two of you, Neil and Glenn, you said so much stuff that made sense to me, that was consistent with what I thought, but it's not getting through to members because a lot of the times it has to move through leaders. And leaders often, as we've heard, do not want that information to move through. So I don't know, you're asking for ideas. One thing that literally just occurred to me before I spoke, could you have an office hours with the two of you, even if it's just for an hour every week for the rest of this referendum? Because people are literally, Cody's question is technical and it's hard to communicate over email sometimes. Can you just have an hour or two every week? It would be incredible. Record it, put it online. That wasn't my question, but it's something I think it would be great if you did.
Hold on, my internet connection is unstable, so I'm going to click something which always makes my connection more stable, but you're going to lose me for about 4 seconds, but I'm going to come back. All right, I'm back. Hopefully this is better. I think it's a great idea. Let me talk to Glenn about see if we can, we could set something up either on Zoom or even if it's not on Zoom, if it's something on an email thing where we can be available live. But yeah, if you guys think that would be helpful, we can certainly figure out something. And like I said, we'll do our best. If we can't get an answer, we'll try to provide an answer. But
sure.
If we can help get information out, we're on board with that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's great. I appreciate that. My main question, and this gets to really what you've seen happen here. I brought this weird technical thing. Cody had a very specific thing. I know leaders at Cody's local and other locals are saying things like, this is not okay. It's happening in higher ed okay as well. People are being told, you can't talk about this. It's not clear when or what that's being referred to. It's not clear if that's people's personal communications. It's not clear if it's on these quasi sort of unofficial things, but that are somehow associated with the local. You all are making clear that you have an issue with local meetings. That's still confusing to me because I believe under our Constitution, it's protected that any member can come and express their opinion at a meeting. But okay, you actually explained to me why you think that might be an edge case, and that makes sense. But that was it's very hard to communicate that except for in these moments. And so what I would like to ask, but also encourage, is that you all recognize that what's going on is that not I think because you wanted to. I genuinely believe you are doing your best, but because due process is hard to set up and you don't have a team of hundreds of people, you're not the DOJ, that these things are not filtering down to members. And instead what's happening is members are asking their leaders question, being told they can't do these things in very broad blanket statements. They can't even speak, not on union time, not at meetings, or they can't say something on an email list that they just happen to have. or they can't. And the thing that I think is worse is that they cannot provide neutral information about the referendum as an officer, even though that is, as far as I know, clearly acceptable at all times in all spaces. And they're hearing these things and they're scared. And inadvertently, you all, because you are trying to do your best, but things get technical, are contributing to what I believe is an administration caucus tactic of quashing information about this referendum. And I don't think it's your intent, but I do think you're inadvertently facilitating it. And I would just ask that you continue to provide more and more accessible ways through maybe something like an office hours, but also through some clear channels of communication. Like a one-pager that says, local leader, you may not tell people that they cannot provide neutral information about this. That is forbidden, right? Because that would be coercion. Them saying something that's not true about the rules is itself probably not permitted. And it's just happening all around.
So my response to that is first of all, Andrew, I think, and I'm sorry to sound like a broken record on this. One of the things that will be helpful is, if the parties do come to an amendment that will lift some of these restrictions. Secondly, we're doing our best to facilitate this and get information out. If we are inadvertently doing something, it's actually just because that's the consent decree that the parties agreed to, in which the judge signed. And we don't have the, any authority or any ability other than what is given to us under the consent decree. And sometimes I wish we had a lot more authority. Sometimes I wish we had less, but it doesn't really matter what I wish. Just like it doesn't matter, like there's a lot of things that I have personal views on that don't matter because this is the job. On this issue, the penalty for violating these rules, is potentially severe. And so I think there is a conservatism of, let's just not go anywhere near this because we don't want to violate the rules. And I understand that. It does not apply to purely neutral statements. There's, neutral statements that are informative, that's spelled out in our rules. And that is, it's spelled out in the statute, and, but our ability to compel union leaders to say something or not say something is just power and authority we do not have. And we cannot force we can't force people to do things. We can say that's wrong. You shouldn't tell people that they can't, not to talk about the fact that there is an election. And as far as speaking up in union meetings, like that's the rules. That's OLMS's interpretation of the consent decree. There's nothing that we could do one way or the other than encourage the parties to address those rules, through a potential amendment that will allow for freer and fuller discussion.
So that's a nice chase. Here's what I think you do have the power to do. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Have a one-pager. Your rules are very detailed. If 100 people have read them, I'd be amazed. Maybe that's the number, but certainly not the million members of the UAW. They're great, but that's not what most people are able to access. It's just they don't have the time. A one-pager that says things like, a leader is not permitted to tell any member or officer that they cannot communicate neutrally about this. I would send hundreds of people that link, and they would see it on your website, signed by you, and they would feel that they had the political capital. You're not going to tell the local leader anything. I understand. You're saying you can't do that. But if I can send a link to someone, they will feel much more empowered to go back to their local leader and say, what you just told me is BS. Neil Borowski said it on the website. I feel very confident about that, right? So you do have the power to give people the foundation to actually fight back when they're being confused or even lied to actively. That it seems like you do have the power to do. And if you could make that commitment, I think it would be enormous, because there's lots of people who are just very scared to challenge their leaders. It's a very scary prospect. They're worried they're going to get fired. They're worried they're going to lose their officership. There's a lot on the line for folks. And they're just giving people that step by having something clearly, plainly written. It's huge. It would be a massive thing. And I think you have that power directly.
Well, I think we certainly can take a look at the FAQs we have on our website and see if we can address address these questions more specifically. I think there is a one-pager on the referendum that is going out, has gone out, Glenn, is in the process.
in the process. We tried to boil down a document that all the locals can post that's neutral, that describes some of the key elements. It doesn't necessarily, Andrew, go into detailed interpretation of the rules, even something fundamental like that. There are ways we could address that, as Neil suggested, but we're going to hopefully have that out to locals. But like anything else, like the local leadership that will receive this will have to post it and put it on the social media. They could do anything with it. There would be no restriction as to how this could be used, and it would get the details of the referendum out.
And we'll make sure you guys get a copy of the one pager when it goes out as well.
Right.
And we'll put it on our website too. It'll be on our website. Okay, Eric, you have your hand up patiently. Let's try you again. And then I.
Yep. I'm glad I'm last.
I'm over time. And my kids, I got to put my kids to bed. Oh, should I unmute you again? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
You can.
Okay. Earlier at the end of the questions, or at the end of the statements that everybody gave, you had mentioned that if there's any offense or anything that was committed or violations to our membership, that you wanted to know whether they were current or in the past. And you also mentioned about voting or elections. My question is, how far back in the past can that go? And is that referring to also general elections in a local?
So I think the point is that if you see something, say something. And if you have a concern, tap into our hotlines and report it. If we don't have jurisdiction over it, then we don't have jurisdiction over it. And we can't do anything about it. But there's no harm in reporting it, because if we do have jurisdiction over it, we'll look at it. And so, it's.
And how far back in the past can that violation go?
I mean, it depends on the type of conduct that's covered under the consent decree. So there are certain provisions that there is a 13-year look back on certain types of criminal activity. And, there's others that potentially, what I would say is, let us know.
I think you answered my question. You said 13 years, right? 13 years look back.
Some things, and some things may have different time periods. And, we're not going back 20 years for something.
No.
That's not really relevant. But I would say this: if it's misconduct that is attached or related to the misconduct that resulted in the consent decree, and that goes back some period of time, if you look at the allegations, let us know and we'll look into it. And I think that's the idea, and that's on the misconduct. On the election hotline, it's this election. It's the referendum. It's this election right now. It's future elections that we're overseeing. Information about past elections, we don't have jurisdiction over.
Okay.
Misconduct, but it's stuff that's happening now and stuff that's happening in during the course of the monitorship. For general misconduct, and again, a misconduct, it's got to be one of the types of misconduct that are enumerated in the consent decree. Think fraud, think corruption. That's what we're, that's the stuff that we can look back on historically, not other stuff.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for participation. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Thank you for your suggestions. As I said, we appreciate them. We take them in, and please continue to reach out to us through our hotlines with other suggestions, thoughts, and of course, if you witness any misconduct, and we will do our best to investigate it and resolve it as quickly as possible. And I really want to thank our team for putting this together and for running it. I thought it was remarkably seamless, and it's not what we do for a living. So I just want to give a big shout out to our IT team and everyone for making this possible. And it will be posted on our website. I'm not exactly sure of the timing, but our hope is it'll be sooner rather than later. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. And I'm sure chat with some of you soon. Bye-bye.